Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes, and it's funny because I already did the intro, so you're going to get the intro number 2, and I wanted to go back and do intro number 1, so you hear the whole intro in a bit, but I wanted to do two things with, I guess, the new intro. We haven't thanked Reed Ferguson for a while, and he is the person that created our intro to the music, so this is a shout-out to Reed, and it's interesting, his website that you can find him at reedferguson.com, he's got a T in the middle of it, so it's Reed. R-E-I-D, and then he's got a T, and then his name, Ferguson, Ferguson.com. He's an awesome musician. He's probably very more than willing to do some gigs for you and some personal music. I love his show. He's got a couple of videos out there, so he's on Instagram. Find him. We love him. He did a great job with our show intro. So check out I guess it's kind of the premiere, the video experience preview of This Will Not Defeat Me After Sexual Abuse. It's going to be on YouTube, so check it out, and here it is.
You see the person who's blowing up and you're like, everybody's like, well, I don't know why they blew up, and they're just a bad person, or they're just, it's like, and then you go talk to them and you find out they're just hurt. They're afraid.
He pointed the gun at me and told me to give him a blowjob. Next thing I know, I'm looking down the barrel of a .22 rifle.
What happened when you shared this with your family?
Family domestic violence led to father shooting at mom. At first, it was nothing abnormal, and he starts to choke me, and he takes his other hand and he pulls down my pants. I just started screaming. I didn't know what else to do, and he told me to shut up. If you say anything, I'll kill you.
People don't know what's going on. There's isolation, there's fear, there's entrapment, ensnarement. I mean, it's suffocating.
If you don't talk about it, if you don't write it, that pressure is going to come out in some way, shape, or form. I took a .357 Magnum.
The memories, the pain.
Then I wanted to take my own life.
Not talking about it was actually probably the worst thing.
Felt that I deserved it. I didn't deserve anything back.
Very successful business person. I was well known in the community as a police officer. I was very well together publicly.
You would never know.
Privately, I was messed up.
And that's why I played a few myself.
He tries to insert himself into my lower part. I didn't know how to deal with the pain of being raped.
Thought of going back there would let me start fighting.
Somebody pointing a gun at you and then telling you to do something like that as a child.
You just act. You deal with the fear that you can't trust anybody.
Then I started realizing how so many things went back to the witnessing of domestic abuse as well as the being sexually abused. Led me down this path of studying sexuality.
You who have endured sexual abuse, other people don't know.
You got to get away from the sewer of the things that happened in your past and stop allowing those things to control you. And that's when you can be made new.
Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes. You are finding us not on YouTube Live. We are actually in my friend Chris Davios's, I guess, house, kitchen. What is this?
This is the family room.
This is the family
Quote unquote,
room.
the palace room.
The palace room.
Yes.
Okay. This is actually where we recorded a part of what we're going to be talking about tonight. This will not defeat me after sexual abuse. Wow. I've been waiting a long time to do a show with this topic. So welcome. We're going to introduce Chris here in a little bit. Through a Therapist's Eyes, where you usually get information about mental health and substance abuse through a panel, personal time in your car, and at home, not the delivery of therapy services in any way. I am not in my office. I am not in my normal stream, so I usually don't know what date or time it is, but this is Saturday, actually. You usually record on a Thursday, so we'll return to that normal stuff. Episode 232. You believe that, Christopher?
Yep.
Is your real name Christopher or Chris?
It's Christopher, but people are not allowed to call me that. They just call me Chris. I like the show.
Like my brother, who nobody's allowed to call my brother Ronnie. He's Ron.
Yeah.
But I can call him Ronnie.
Yeah.
So are there people that can call you Christopher?
Like one.
Like one.
Yeah.
Mama.
Nope.
No, not Mama. Well, maybe we'll find out who that is later on. So Apple, iTunes reviews are helpful. Spotify, LinkedIn, you can find us all over the place. Contact it through atherapisteyes.com. Chris, you know I like to say on the podcast that this is the human emotional experience which we endeavor to figure out together. We've figured some stuff out, I guess, over the last several months with this whole thing, haven't we?
Oh yeah, I figured out a lot.
Right. Pretty amazing to have worked with you to create what we are kind of now launching. Finally, after so many weeks or months later,
Yes.
can you believe it's gotten here?
Yeah, finally. Woo.
Right.
Took a while.
Right. So this will not defeat me after sexual abuse is a video experience that I guess through a therapist's eyes in combination with what is your group?
Power of God Ministries and Media.
The Power of God Ministries and Media. We have joined forces to create the This Will Not Defeat Me After Sexual Abuse. So we're going to be talking about that today. A little bit about sexual abuse in general, but really kind of telling you what about the program you get out of it, what it is, all of that kind of a thing. But before we get into that, let's just get to know you. Who are you? Where do you come from, and who are you? I didn't prepare usually because you're more a buddy of mine now, so I didn't prepare like this is an amazing author. He's done all these amazing things. I know you but on a personal level, so give me the professional plug.
Okay.
What is Mr. Chris Davios? Who is he?
Well, he was born in a small town called Hopkins, South Carolina, just east of Columbia. Grew up in a home where there was a lot of domestic violence and in a family where there was sexual abuse. Decided to not allow my circumstances to define who I was. And so I became a police officer, one to battle against, criminals and, people, domestic abusers didn't have a great chance with me.
25 years.
25
right?
years.
Police officer for 2.5 decades.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your service in doing all of that, man, by the way.
You're welcome.
Throw that
Thank
in
you.
there.
And then I decided, because I was told that I was going to be a failure, I decided to start a computer business.
Who was wrong about that?
He was very wrong about that.
Who was wrong about that?
It was my father, believe it or not.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. So I run a computer business. I am a published author of 4 books and working on a children's series that kind of tells kids that you can be whatever God called you to be.
Awesome.
As well as we do some little comedy videos dealing with social issues with my partner, homeboy, Justin, the light man. And
Is that his name?
his real name is Baker.
The middle name, or is that?
Nah.
Usually you do the corny jokes when we're hanging out or doing stuff or whatever. I'm sorry. Did I just take over a corny joke, man?
You got it.
Did I do good enough?
did
with
pretty
it?
good.
I did pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah. But he's a baker, but he can't cook, so we just call him Justin.
Oh.
Justin the light man.
Oh, so it's really Justin Baker.
Yeah.
And just a note and a word of thank you to Justin. He really helped us out by doing recordings, and what you'll see with the video experience, if This Will Not Defeat Me, is it's not a training or a class. I call it a video experience. And
Yes.
Justin, who's actually hanging out with us in the room here, was awesome. I hadn't really done a lot of camera work and whatever like that outside of the shows and different small stuff. So, miking me up and dealing with my weirdness with all of that was. Thank you for Justin for coaching me with all of that. It was very helpful, and you did an awesome job. Justin the Baker.
Yeah, the baker.
Okay. All right, but we interrupted you.
Yeah. And then also, Justin and I did a movie called Are You Serious?, which is dealing with the topic of sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. So, and, kind of even how we met was just a weird situation.
It was. We're going to come to that for sure, because it was a weird situation.
Yeah.
I mean, all this stuff is kind of by design. So yeah, you do a lot. Interesting. What would you say is your primary day job? What's your big gig?
Computers.
You even nail it down?
Computer networking and engineering is my day job.
I really wondered how you would say that, right? Yeah. How do they find you? Give yourself a plug. Do it. Don't be shameful about it. Come on. I know you don't want to, but how can people find Chris Davios to help with all of their networking and computer stuff? Because I know that you're super good about it and good at it, and it's amazing.
Yeah, newmiracles.com. That's new, like a new car, hyphen, and then miracles, like in the Bible.com. You can reach out to us. My email is, you can just send it to adminstaff@newmiracles.com, and someone will get in contact with you.
And what do you do? Set up networks, programming. Like, what do you really do?
We do any type of IT stuff, internet routing and all of that, router switches, networks. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big companies, small companies, mom and pop shops,
everything from
corporations. Like, what do we got?
Yeah, everything from the small and medium to actually consulting for large corporations.
Okay, cool.
So, yep.
B of A, call him. He'll help you out.
Oh, yeah.
And the mom and pop shop with 2 employees. Yeah, no, and you will love working with Chris, because if anything, working with him through all that we've done with all of this program and stuff, I can test that he is awesome. So, yeah, why did we create This Will Not Defeat Me After Sexual Abuse? And you are obviously passionate about this. You've gotten into writing. You haven't written. Oh, you got another book to come about your story, don't you? You need to write that one, brother.
Yeah.
Knowing your story. Yeah. That's got to happen.
Yeah, that's probably within the next year or two. That book will be done.
Okay, so it's in the works.
Yeah, it's in my head right now, but it'll eventually be on paper.
Dude, we needed to have that go with the little video experience deal, man. We should have thought of that ahead of time. But check him out, man. He's doing a lot of things, and obviously it relates to sexual abuse as being the number one passion.
Yes,
for a reason. This has been a part of your life, right? I say that purposely that way. Oh, yeah. Only a part.
Yeah. It was, as a child, it was a defining part. And unfortunately, you don't remember a lot of that stuff. You just have these behaviors that you don't understand.
Sexual abuse sucks.
It really
Can we say that? Like,
yeah.
It sucks.
And it's actually more common than most people realize. There's a bunch of people we see. Sometimes we call them crackheads, prostitutes, people who have challenges in society. When you really get down to it, a lot of times if you take the time and talk to them, you'll find out that they've been actually abused sexually and just don't know how to deal with their issue.
Yeah, you know what? We do these little YouTube reels. You should check them out, all you through a therapist-sized people around the world. And I'm gonna give you a heads up. Here's a reel, right? I have never done that before, have I? I am calling it out right now. I want this to be a reel. And for those of you who don't know what a reel is, it is just a thing that he catches something that I say in the show and pops a little segment on. So join in here at the end if you want, because I just want to rail for a second. Not rail, but I want to highlight, like, I support the Me Too movement. Like, thankfully, we have had that happen, and it has helped millions of women around the world. And I have thought in my mind since then for a while of somehow launching, maybe this is it right now, right? The He Too movement. Because men, as you just said a little bit ago on our podcast show, Chris, do not talk about this stuff, do not address this stuff, are silent and alone, and they realm in the millions.
Yep.
Finish off our reel here. Do you agree?
I totally agree, because with men, we have our little standard and our pride that we don't want anybody to know what happened to us. So we end up destroying a bunch of other stuff around us because we don't want to deal with what's going on in us and what happened to us.
Right.
So, yeah, the He Too movement would be good, so guys who are struggling with issues can face their issue head on and not deal with the stigma of something that they had no control over.
I mean, I'm telling you, like you said, it affects many people. And there are not, I don't know, in my mind, in my therapy mind, there are not like too many things left that are really just like, we do not talk about this one.
Yeah.
As I demonstrated with my pen for, dude, sexual abuse amongst men.
Yeah.
Porn addictions and sexual addictions as well is another one of them. Isn't it interesting that there's a combination of the sexuality piece here? But this is one area where dudes just this is a left. It's one of the last bastions in mental health that people do not understand that we could talk about yet.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah, because I mean, like I said, it's the stigma of it. You know, what guy wants to say somebody, touched me the wrong way or tried to do something to me, and that's already rough for guys to even talk about.
Right.
We don't even want to talk about if our team lose. We don't want to talk about that. So less yet somebody who robbed you of your childhood that was in most cases, family member.
A lot of times it's people right?
Yeah, the closest people to you.
Isn't it like, I'm making up numbers, but it's like 70%, 75, 80% of the time, the sexual crime is
a family member.
It's a family member or a friend, somebody we know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the sad part is because of the lost trust at the childhood stage, the person grows up not trusting anyone.
That's the thing.
Which then creates additional problems in their life.
So we're talking about sexual abuse today, and that affects men and women.
Yes.
I just wanted to take a special time there, though, to really, really highlight the he too, because men, we're talking to you out there as victims of sexual abuse, and God Almighty, how powerful it is that you are courageous enough to kind of step into the world and let them know that this is something that you have been offended with. And I said this to you on the beginning of the video experience. I don't know if you remember it, but before we really even got going on it, man, for the first segment, I think, I wanted to say how grateful I am that you're doing that and sharing your experience. What a powerful reality that is, man. It is strong on you that you're doing this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of the title, "This Will Not Defeat Me," was kind of my attitude. Because I was praying and saying, God, what's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Why do I think so violent? Why do I want to hurt people? What is going on in my head? And fighting that, what I call a demon, I just made my mind up. I wasn't going to let that, prevent me from being a good person. And I wasn't going to let that cause me to hurt other people.
Right.
And
so what's the basis? I mean, I want to say that part of what's so powerful about the video experience of This Will Not Defeat Me After Sexual Abuse is that you spend, I think our segment on that was like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, 20 minutes of just gut-wrenching reality of what your story is and sharing that with people so that they will know that they are not alone.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to give all of that now, and really more for the reason of I don't want you to have to go through all of it right now. I mean, because that was tough, wasn't it?
It was.
I mean, I remember being surprised, honestly, Chris, in the middle, because I hadn't heard some of those things. And I know that now I'm looking back, like you were really gearing up. You were gearing in. You were like lighting it up in your mind. And about 5-10 minutes through, I'm like, oh, whoa. What's going on?
Well, the thing about it is every time you talk about it, it gets easier.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's actually a release.
Highlight.
Yeah, it is a release because years ago, I attended a class at a church called RAMS, which stood for Rape, Molestation, Abuse, and Substance or something like that.
Okay.
And yeah, that first time trying to talk about that did not go well.
Wasn't going to happen.
That was like,
talk, can't really form words.
Can't get any words out, ready to hurt anybody who comes near me, but then the more you write those things out, because I had to start writing and talking about them, you start with the one piece that you remember, but then it takes you back and all the other things. And the more you get it out, the more it frees you. A lot of times we think of what others will think about us. I'm here to tell you, I don't care what people think about me. I'm free. I'm free now. And there's no more, it happened. Not something I had any control over. I was a kid. but I'm free. So whereas before, I mean, anything got close to it, it was a fight. And so
like
now,
because you would feel violent.
yeah, I would feel violated, would feel threatened.
I said violent.
Yeah. Oh, violent. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah, it was literally a fight.
Yeah.
But now it's like, yeah, okay, it happened.
So what is it? What's the short of what happened to you? Would you say? I know you shared it on the video experience in depth and detail. Like what? How can you let people know? Like what are we talking about?
Well, it was, I would say, went from rape to from molestation to attempted rape. Somebody tried to do things that you shouldn't do with kids. I'm gonna just leave it like that. Let them watch the rest of on the video.
And you were pretty young.
Yeah, between 6 and 8 years old.
Yeah.
And it has a mental effect. I mean, there's a lot of people I believe who are struggling with homosexuality now was because of somebody violating them as a child, and they may not realize, what happened to them because the brain has this protection thing of it. You forget, you don't remember it, but the nerve endings still remember certain parts of it. And so, because I mean, after it happened to me, I started questioning my sexuality as, was this supposed to happen? Am I gay, or is what's going on with me is what I started thinking, because I was a kid and I didn't know any better. I didn't know that, cousin ain't supposed to be touching you or doing certain things or trying to do things to you. So it made me question.
Well, that's a natural part of sexual abuse. I mean, it's also part of what creates guilt and shame. Men and women, no matter who is the offender with your scenario or your trauma, there's tremendous confusion when you really start talking about, well, my body responded.
Yeah.
I liked it. Maybe I wanted that. Like that is a common experience. As a matter of fact, with unfortunately many more women than men, again, because of the shame, and I've just never hear about men's experiences quite as much. Don't get me wrong, I do, but there's oftentimes people will kind of believe that this wasn't even an offense, that this was an affair that I had, or that this was now we know the term date rape, but we know that there's inappropriate sexual experiences that women have had when they said like no, and sexuality still happens. So it creates a lot of doubts, fears, not just about homosexuality, but just that I was wrong in this. I carry some burden of responsibility, and I'll make a bold statement here. If you've experienced inappropriate sexual behavior, there is zero responsibility that is on you. It is on the person 100% who offended you and created a traumatic response. Sorry, I feel strong about that.
No, you're real. That's real. And you touched on something that a lot of the perks will tell the person who they've...
What do you say, perps?
Perks.
Perks?
Perpetrators.
Perps. Perps.
Yeah.
That is a police officer in you, isn't it?
Yeah. The perk said, but they will literally tell, oh, well, you wanted this. This is what you asked for. And they'll try to play mind games with you to make you think that was something you asked. And it
really makes me want to feel violent, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it does, man, when people... but anyway, all right.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is they want to get in your head. That's why a lot of times it's the ones that's the closest to you, the people you should trust, and they'll tell you things. Oh, well, but that's what you said you want. No, that's not. No. And for kids, especially, kids don't.
They don't even have the ability, man,
to make that decision.
To use the voice, to use the power to say no. It's kids a whole nother level in my mind.
Oh yeah, and then another thing is well, if you say something, I'll kill you. So now the kid's afraid.
Terrified.
Because they're thinking if I say something, this person's going to kill my mom or my dad. Because the kid don't know no better. You're just a kid. And so then they're almost forced in a corner to not talk about it. And the perk just walks and keeps doing it, doing it to other kids. And that's the part where we have to say something. We have to talk. I mean, any victory comes from a fight. So you got to be willing to fight. And fight, one, for yourself to be free, and fight so this person doesn't hurt other people.
Yeah, in the video experience of This Will Not Defeat Me After Sexual Abuse, I remember like segment 3 right up in the beginning of it, I explained, like, listen, I'm not a passive therapist. Yeah. I'm not somebody that just sits back and kind of like, this is a battle. This is an absolute battle and a fight. I love what your attitude is with that. I mean, when you're working in a therapy experience with me, or when you're dealing throughout this video experience that hopefully you'll be interested in if you've dealt with this issue, you have different kind of tools and weapons. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about guns and knives and fights and fists and this type of thing. We're talking about de-escalation skills. We're talking about cognitive reframing. We're talking about the tool of self-talk. That is a sword. Mm-hmm. We're talking about lifting shame and reframing your beliefs about yourself. Like, this wasn't your accountability. I mean, that's the battle line. Yep. And I want to go to war, man, on this with those weapons.
Oh yeah, because before we were fighting with the fists, the guns, the knives,
right?
And because that's the only weapons we knew how to fight with.
It's not effective,
right? And so what happens now with therapy and with learning how to fight different, same battle, but you're fighting with different weapons and more effective weapons.
You remember how we met?
Oh yeah,
that was crazy, wasn't it?
It most certainly was.
I think that, to me, I don't know what you really feel about it, but to me, it really felt like things were just set up, right? So the short is, I had a student that was just working with me in my practice, shadowing me, learning about mental health and all this kind of thing, and she had a conversation with you, I guess, about an emotional issue. You kind of remember, I gather?
Oh, yeah.
You remember this?
Remember it like it was yesterday. And then somehow we met not long after that.
And you didn't know her?
Didn't know her, never met her before in my life. But it was God. For those who don't believe that God exists, I'm going to tell you, he does exist.
Yeah.
And he sets up things, and he arranged for me to be in that place where she was, to have that conversation. Because I was just I'm going to go get my coffee and I'm going to get up out of here. And it literally, it's like, go talk to her. That's literally what I heard. That was what I heard. It's like, okay, I don't know this lady. And in my mind, I'm like, they're going to put me in jail talking to this girl. I don't know who she is. And it was amazing that as we started a short conversation, some things in my life as a police officer was what she was working on. And that's how the conversation started. And then I guess she gave you my number.
Well, she came and she was just talking that morning, I mean, we're in a therapy thing. And I mean, she was still emotional a little bit. And that was fine. And I was just supportive and encouraging. I was like, well, wait a minute. Back up. Who'd you talk to? Oh, this dude just does it, whatever. I was like, oh, who is he? I don't know. Well, I gave his card. She showed me the card he gave me. It was like a video thing. I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on a minute. I kind of need a video guy because I had some thoughts in my head on things I wanted to do and all. And so I called you. I was like, hey, you don't know me, man. But by the way, my name's Chris. And, of course, your name's Chris.
Yeah, so the Chris's.
I told you what I had in mind, and you're like basically already having done it, right? And having started doing a lot of things. And so we thought, well, let's actually meet and chat and talk. And I think we have an alliance that's going to do a lot of good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So what is, in your mind, Mr. Davios, This Will Not Defeat Me After Sexual Abuse, the video experience?
It's walking through not only the pain, but the path to healing. It gives you steps, one that I personally have gone through before I even knew the therapy side of it. And then to meet an actual therapist who was like, oh, yeah, that means this, and this means that, and that means this. And
not me, but another person, right?
Yeah, another therapist. And then you started telling me about cognitive reframing. I don't use big words like that, y'all. I just say, well, change the way you think.
I only do it when I'm talking to my crowd. I dumb it down.
But, yeah, so by you telling, our conversations, me not realizing I was on a path to healing, using what God taught me, what other therapists taught me, and those were the weapons So even like the scripture, the weapons of warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. So there were certain things in the mental health and in the therapy area that helped pull down those strongholds that was in my mind that was, kind of like a control thing in the background messing with my life. And so, after we met and then learning that from you, or relearning it, should I say, and then talking about it, because that was kind of the big key. There's a shame attached to sexual abuse. And most of the time people don't talk about it. But by not talking about it, you keep yourself in bondage.
Right.
When you don't talk about it, you hold it in, and what happens is it just comes out in an explosion. Versus talking about it is kind of a slow release of that pressure, and it frees you. It frees the way you think. It frees and allows you to know that it really wasn't your fault.
And it's amazing to me, Chris, and there might be many of you listening to Through a Therapist's Eyes, episode 232, realizing that you've experienced this, and this is not something to date in your life, whether you're 53, 73 years old, 23, or 13. Hopefully more of the younger variety, because it is such an amazing experience when in my therapy office, Chris, people share this for the first time in their life and they've told no one.
Yeah.
Right? No one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, like, who am I to receive, this information? And what do we do with that? How do we heal starting at that time? It's a powerful reality that I've relived multiple times. And I'm super glad every time that it happens. And hopefully it happens a few more times, because I know the healing and the recovery that comes from that.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you for your service in helping those who suffered, because if it wasn't for therapists like you and people who care to listen, because when you feel like you can't talk about it, you don't talk about it.
Right.
When you're in an emotionally safe place, you can release.
It's possible.
Yeah. And so, therapists like yourself and others like you who are there to help professionally help us get free, because that's ultimately what the goal is, to be free from the pain of the past, free from the judgment of others for something that you had nothing to do with, just be free and not allow that past to control you, to define you, or to defeat you. The Bible refers to how the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, talking about Satan. We a lot of times think of it in one way, but when you mess with a child at a young age and you start to derail their life, that purpose is to steal, kill, or destroy. That killing could be from them substance abuse because they don't know how to deal with the pain. Destroying their life where they feel that they're not worth anything, so they make decisions not based on the value God assigned to them, but based on how they feel because of an emotional experience or a sexual experience as a child that they had no control over. It can destroy the way they think, the way they view themselves. There are a lot of young ladies out there, and even men who have become prostitutes, and they sell their body because they don't feel they're worth anything. And by them getting free, by opening up and talking about what happened and getting free from it, getting the tools to reframe their reality, to change their thought pattern, it changes them and makes them into a better person. So again, I want to say thank you for your service.
It's powerful. Thank you. I mean, it's humbling, Chris. I think that we as therapists, which is part of the theme of the show, right? Like, through a therapist's eyes, as much as I realize and I'm listening to you there, I as much as I think I get it, I'm sure I don't. We forget. It's a humbling reality, like I said, to really receive those reports and those stories and begin to see people kind of come out. I always think of a Vietnam veteran when I was a young clinician. I was very young and new, and he shared for the very first time, things that he experienced in the bush in Vietnam. And I was like, whoa. And I remember being like just stunned. And I asked him, I said, well, who who knows about like what happened to you there? And he just looked at me solemnly and really just straight eye to eye. And he said, Chris, nobody. And I'm just like, whew, like, wow, okay. And so I forget, I think we don't realize and we forget how big of a reality that is, because when you're alone with that type of thing, it just sucks. It's just terrible. It's terrifying, and it almost creates a sense that there's just no hope.
Yeah.
So I like to say, with this will not defeat me after sexual abuse, you know, what do we get out of here? What are people doing? So let's talk about the video experience, man. Why did you do this? I think I know the answer. You've already talked about the answer, but really, like, why put it on a video experience? What do you hope from this? What do you see happening with this? What's your vision? Because I think we share it.
Yeah, that others who have gone through it or are going through it, they will see it and realize it's kind of a me too or he too situation, and this person got free, so I can too. That I'm not alone in this, because so many times the victims feel like they're the only person this is happening to. And a lot of guys don't really talk about it. And so I want, because I want the men who've gone through this to know, because it could destroy your family and everything else. But if you get free, it saves your family, it saves your marriage, it saves your children. And that's how you save a nation.
Wow.
So I mean, this is bigger than me and my kids, or it's to help this country, to help the world, because this doesn't just happen in America. This is happening all over the world.
Well, I'm glad that you just extended that beyond our simple boundaries of these United States.
Yeah.
I mean, this is absolutely, you're on a worldwide podcast right now, and we're speaking to the world.
Right.
And this is something around the world. In different cultures, different creeds, different breeds, different reeds. It just rhymes, Chris. Bear with me, the reeds, right? Different climates, different lands. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same. It is a human emotional experience that is torturous to the soul.
Right.
Sexual abuse. And I don't know that other cultures are better talking about it than ours, for sure.
No.
And so we are taking a stab at, some weapons to arm people. You know what this will not defeat me after sexual abuse really is about? To some extent, to me, it's about an answer to the question. And the question oftentimes people have is, what do I do?
Yeah.
How do I deal with this? What actions can I take? Like, I have been stuck for 30 years with this. This happened to me. So I do not know anything of what I'm supposed to do. It's just, I am stumped.
Yep.
And though I don't think we have an imminent, immediate solution, because what was done to you and how you were harmed and traumatized can never go away.
Right.
And I don't want to make any, clickbait or we've got the answer kind of claims, or I'm pretty genuine and truthful and straight up. So we can't ever make this go away.
Yeah.
It will be with you forever. But the power that it has over your life,
right,
we know what to do.
It's like
we know some steps, right?
Yep. It's like having a set of handcuffs. In one instance, the handcuffs are on you and they're holding you and they're restricting you, versus you have the key, you unlock them. You still have that set of handcuffs, but now you can use it as a fighting tool, as like a set of brass knuckles. So it's the same. It's the same thing, but it's being used differently.
I'm sorry, you are such a police officer with that metaphor. I love it, though. That's awesome. That's awesome.
And I never hit anybody with a set of handcuffs on my knuckle. Let's get that straight.
Okay, good. What are some of the answers? I'm curious in our talkings. I mean, you've obviously you did a lot of the video editing, and our segments. You were there. We recorded. We have some answers about what to do, how to move. What's the first steps? What are some steps? What are some tools? How do we move to get to where you have gotten after experiencing sexual abuse? Like, what do you remember, I guess, either in your journey of getting well, or specifically in our video experience, what's the first thing that comes to mind when somebody says, "All right, I'm a victim as well, bro. I don't know what to do.
Write it out.
What do I do?"
Start writing. Start writing everything you remember. It doesn't have to be a perfect story, but as you start to write it, you start to get it out. That's to me was one of the biggest things, because until I could relieve some of the pressure of it and getting it out, putting it on paper, yeah, you relive it, but you're getting it out. That was the first and the biggest thing for me. And secondly, knowing that it wasn't your fault.
Well, hold on. Let me go a little further with that. So with the first one, what's funny is you say you get it out,
Right.
and we talked about this on one of the video experiences. As a matter of fact, I think that was one of the ones we were sitting right here.
Possibly so.
I think it was. I think I was sitting in the same spot, actually. And the interesting thing about that is when you write it down, it has movement. It goes, It's in you. Nobody knows besides you and the offender. And when you write it down on paper, that physical action is neurologically, psychologically, physically powerful and different. It is a different action. And nobody still knows besides you and the offender,
Right.
but it gets out.
It gets out. Yep.
Isn't that amazing? You don't have to tell anybody, but you can get it out. And in getting it out that moves out of you, there's a piece of the power that it's held over you that actually exits.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to get too existential crazy with the psychology behind it and what we know and what we study and how all that works. And who knows if we know. I can tell you it just moves the energy out of you onto a piece of paper. Even I don't care if you burn it. I don't care if you crumple it. I don't care if you send it up into a balloon or put it in a bottle or wherever you do. There's movement.
Well, don't send it in a balloon above the U.S. It might get shot down by a $14 million missile.
Yeah, we've had issues with that in the States. I'm sure you've heard around the world. I don't know, balloons floating over the States. What do we come to? But then you said number two.
And number two, it was writing it, talking about it, and knowing that it wasn't your fault. Number two, I would say definitely was knowing it wasn't your fault, because the perks or the offenders always try to make you think this was you. Even with rapists, they tell the victim, this is what you want. You want this, or it's your fault. So the person has a shame that they carry, and they don't want to, because they're thinking that, well, this is what I asked for. And that's not the case. This was a nasty individual who violated you or did something to you, and then they played mind games with you. Versus when it's not your fault, when that's not what you wanted. You didn't have a choice. You didn't know how to fight back. So now knowing that it wasn't your fault is one of the ways you can fight, or I'm going to say the devil or the enemy who's playing with your mind, telling you, oh, this is what you wanted. No, it wasn't. And it's not my fault.
You know what's funny? It's a totally different show. But as you say, it just stuck in my head, so I'm going to say it out loud. This is a nasty individual that hurt you. Part of really healing later on in the healing process, when you're really emotionally free and you can be objective and you reach states of forgiveness, which is defined by letting go of your anger against another. Casey, a colleague of mine, loves to say, hurt people.
That's true. Very true.
And so I don't want to change anything you said or confront it. I'm just saying an additional perspective is that, there are many people that have sexually offended other people that we're talking about as a victim. We're talking to them too.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like you may want to engage through a therapist's eyes, or this will not defeat me. Just misspoke. This will not defeat me. Having offended somebody else sexually and being a victim yourself.
To that point, and I think this was discussed in the This Will Not Defeat Me, the person who sexually abused me, I found out was sexually abused themselves as a child.
You know, I don't think that we did talk about that in the video.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
well, now y'all know.
Right.
But what helped me to forgive, because the Lord told me I had to forgive him.
Yeah.
And that's that was another
Crazy.
thing that freed me, was forgiving the offender. But when I found out the offender was sexually abused as a child, and, you know, it didn't make it okay with what they did, but it also helped me understand that person was hurt themselves.
You know, particularly people that are becoming sexual with prepubescent kids, women, girls, or boys, like, what creates the idea that is even something you would think about doing?
It's, I could say nasty.
Chances are you've experienced
they've
it.
experienced it.
That's where the idea comes, because that's what happened to you.
Yeah. And as a police officer, I responded to a call one day where it was I want to say 5 or 6 year old girl kissed another girl in the mouth at the daycare. And en route, I was having a conversation with my partner, and I said, somebody has done this to this child. So
Right.
when we
You already
get there,
knew.
and we start talking to this girl who was a young African American female, and I asked her, where did you get, why did you do that? And she began to say that her babysitter was doing that to her.
Just pause for a second. I have no idea. It is amazing to me, Mr. Chris Davios, how you were a police officer for 25 years, investigating, interacting, coping with other people and the trauma, such as this girl that you were on a standard call for, and having been a victim of this yourself. Like, I don't know how you contain yourself.
Well, here's the thing.
I really don't.
Being a victim helps you identify other victims.
100%.
Like I always used to say X-Men, Professor X was a mutant, so he can tell other mutants.
Yeah.
The normal person would look and be like, they're just a little off. But Professor X, he's like, nah, that's a mutant. Their abilities comes from what happened to them. And I remember doing this course called Making Peace with Your Past. And it taught me something. Due to my abuse, I was able to see other victims. I
Like
could
this
see
girl-
the behaviors.
Like this girl who was simply kissing
another
man.
girl.
Yeah.
Domestic abuse. I could see the behavior, and okay, I know where this comes from.
Yeah.
And you talk to people, and I want to say 99.9% of the time, it was accurate.
Yeah.
As soon as you talk, and you see when the light goes on. One of the ones specifically, and this is talked about in the movie Are You Serious, was I rolled up on a police call. There's this young lady with 2 11-inch butcher blades in her hand.
Like, this is a real call?
Like, this is a real police call in the Richland County area of South Carolina. We rolled up. This girl's out there with these 2 butcher blades.
Holy cow.
And I get out of the car, drew my weapon, dropped the knives, and she said, yes, sir, which was kind of weird.
Oh, I remember you talking about this.
And
yeah.
so I told my partner, since, we had secured her, you take her out, talk to this guy. And the guy was telling me how bad this little girl was and all of this. And I go back to my partner, and he's like, yeah, we know her. This girl's been all kind of trouble. Wow. The school resource officers, everybody knows the girls are the troublemaker.
She's angry.
And so when I talk to her, she's yes, sir, no, sir. Yeah. Well, that don't line up with a bad kid. So I go to my partner and I said, I think this girl's been sexually abused. And honestly, I'm thinking it was the stepfather.
Right.
So lo and behold, come to find out the stepfather was sexually abusing her. She had the knives not because she wanted to hurt him, but because she wanted to protect herself.
Yeah, she's protecting herself, sure.
And my partner later asked me, how did you find it? Because she's had so many interactions with police, but nobody saw that but me. And I broke down that day in the patrol car and said, because I was her. Oh. Many years ago, when I was dealing with knives and guns, it wasn't because I wanted to hurt somebody. I was afraid and didn't want to be hurt myself.
Is that the first time you revealed it?
To him, yeah. My partner, it was the first time he had heard it. And
I think I remember you talking. That was when you began to reveal, though.
Yeah.
When was the first time you revealed it?
The first memory I had of being sexually abused.
No. When's the first time you revealed it to any other person?
Oh God.
That's what I'm saying.
When I was in the Rams class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. Really?
Yeah.
That
But I was a cop by that time. I had been going through, and I was having little memories of it, but just not like flashbacks.
Who did you tell?
I think it was a girl I was dating at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. No, for some reason I thought your police partner was the first person you told.
No, I told him because by that time I'd already gone through Rams, and I was able to more identify stuff. But it was the first time I said anything to him, and he was kind of shocked, like, "You, really?"
Yeah.
Because he didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, and he just knew I was a really good cop, and I could pick up on stuff that other officers didn't. But when I revealed to him, I knew that because that was me.
That's strong. That is powerful. I got to circle back though. By the way, I can't let it go. Did we identify the babysitter as a perpetrator?
Yes.
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 Hell yes. Because the victimization needs to stop. I mean, something that we know of about this is that when you find one, you've got multiple.
Mm-hmm.
You really do. It's like an emotional cancer.
Yeah.
I don't know when the original sin was. Maybe it was Cain and Abel. You know, back in the days where you had maybe a world population of 1,000. Maybe that was the first time we had sexual abuse. But follow me for a minute, because if that was only one person in the entire world population of 1,000 that received some sort of weird sexual event, they will do it to not one other, but
anybody they can.
Multiple, few at least. And as the world population grows from 1,000 to 10,000, and the one victim grew from 3 to 11, you know, by the time the world population keeps on growing, guess what other population keeps on growing? It spider webs out that way.
Yep.
You know, in sexual abuse families, you know, as a trained therapist, I know if I find one victim, I'm just looking around. Mm-hmm. Like, which, you know, anyone else want to put their hand up, right? Because I know there's other people that have been offended and that are still silent. Mm-hmm. So that's a reality, unfortunately.
Well, you said something just now that kind of, not gonna say struck a nerve, but it definitely hit home. When I finally, as an adult, shared this with my mother, she said that they knew. The same guy had raped all 3 of his sisters, gotten one of his sisters pregnant. And my thought was, why would you leave me with that fool?
Right.
Because we didn't think he would try that with you because you were a guy.
Right. Oh, God.
But the fact is, nasty is just nasty.
Well,
and it has no limits.
Sexually acting out is sexually acting out, and it does cross gender lines for sure. I mean, oftentimes in normal sexual development, you'll have, same gender experiences. That's, truth and dare, back to the schoolyard, right? Mm-hmm. Truth and dare, and, spin the bottle, and just different weird things, right? And so all of that kind of mixes up. Listen, I'm aware of the time. What do people get out of this will not defeat me after sexual abuse? I think in the initial parts of it, we really kind of do, your story so that people know that they're not alone. They write down some homeworks along the way and really begin to kind of heal and grow from, what they've been silent about or told only a few, and maybe they're early in the recovery healing process. How would you describe what people get out of this? Like, why do they need to check it out?
My one-word summary would be freedom.
Okay.
Emotional freedom. My description, or the long one, is they get steps to get to that freedom.
Gotcha. Okay.
The ultimate goal of emotional freedom, but there's steps, and every section within it walks you through another step. It takes you from point A to point B to point C till you get all the way to the end. And, you may have where you need to get a little bit professional help. You may have where this will get you to a point where you can kind of do a little bit more on your own. But either way, it's going to be steps that it gives you to get to ultimately emotional freedom.
Got you. Yeah, I just signaled to you, Neil. You need your mic here in a little bit. You might not have known that, but you're gonna need one if you need to plug it in or whatever. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I want people to understand, like, what are the steps? What is this like? What is this video experience like? And like, I remember there were like several segments that we did, little individual videos that is literally from my therapy office.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we did some of the segments right here in your family room. This is the palace rooms. What you said, the palace. This is the palace. And we did some video experiences in the woods.
Yep.
And so it's really a dynamic kind of experience that I think. That's why I wanted to call it a video experience, not a class.
Yeah.
It's just
It's better than a class.
It's more than a class. And really, we're walking with you. I mean, you get emails that are encouraging you, through some of these steps.
Mm-hmm.
I know you didn't like some of the video shading and everything, but we yeah, you know which one I'm talking about. We went to the to the coffee shop at the end.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was neat because we're talking about, what you do in an ongoing basis. So there's a lot of steps and segments, and, this is also at your own pace. It's in your own home. It's at your own space. It's, it's safe.
Mm-hmm. And that's the key thing, is the safety and the fact that, like you said, you don't forget it. You just know how to manage it and not let it control you. That, to me, was the biggest thing is, it happened. I can't go back and change the past, but I can choose to not allow that past to defeat me, stop me, or prevent me from living my full potential.
And you know what was kind of amazing to me a little bit? I didn't ever say this to you off the mics, but it occurs to me, and now I get to say it while I'm talking to you in front of the world, right? It was kind of neat, for lack of a better word. I remember you made a comment. I'm sure you probably don't even remember the comment, but we were talking about video editing and doing some stuff that you were doing and getting the program together, and you made a comment that was like, "Wow, cool, very cool," because you're like, "Yeah, man, I was doing the editing and I was running through these things and I was learning so much as I was watching these things." Mm-hmm. You remember saying that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was funny to me because I'm like, wait a minute, bro. Like, you were in it. You are teaching people what you have done. And you're watching it yourself and learning more every time. Look, I think you're going to purchase This Will Not Defeat Me After Sexual Abuse. And you're going to watch this over and over again and continue getting more, because I mean what I say on Through a Therapist's Eyes. This is the human emotional experience. And we together, through a video experience, figure this thing out together. And we even did that, the participants creating the video.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like reading the Bible. You can read the same scripture over and over and get something new every time. Watching that video, I was like, dang, I never thought. And it's like,
of it that way that what did I just say?
Yeah, like, that's it. Wow, and it's like it opens your eyes to the thing, because you can see it and it becomes common.
Right.
And then you see it again. It's like, wow, I didn't catch it the first time.
Right.
So yeah, it's very true.
And it'll hit you at different stages of your recovery. Mm-hmm. You'll hear something like self-talk is one of our segments, and we talk about how to use self-talk as a tool, as a strategy, one of the several strategies that are in this experience. And I'm sure you will go through it, and you'll go through it 4 months later. Yep. And you might hear the same talk on self-talk. And guess what? You can receive that information different. And so the same video segment on self-talk hits you in a different way, it's like upgrading your weapon.
Yep, upgrading your weapon. That's exactly what it is.
Right? So one of the things that I highlighted to answer my own question, what is something that I think is one of the bigger things in there, you just alluded to it a little bit ago, a second ago, Chris, is de-escalation.
Oh, yeah. That was, knowing not to go off and blow up and hurt people.
Yeah, and I remember talking to you guys, like, there is a free section of this thing that we just want to put out to the world, and I made sure that I wanted that to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. It is a cost for the whole program. It's like, well, Neil, you talk about that here in a second. How do they get it? How does it work? That type of thing. So gear your brain for that if you would. But I wanted that to be really free, 100%, like first and free and highlighted, because when you experience these things and they start coming back in memory and you start feeling the feelings, you've got to know how to be able to just breathe, calm down. Remember, we did the 5 things that you can see, 5 things that you can hear, 5 things that you can feel, and you come back into the room and it's amazing how you can have a panic attack almost in a flashback memory, and you breathe. Look at the picture frame. We talked about corner right, corner left, bottom right, bottom left, box breathing. De-escalate with vision, hearing, feeling. You need to know that. Like, to me, that's one of the most important things.
Oh, yeah. Because it brings you back to earth instead of being on the explosive rocket in space that drove you crazy.
So, Mr. Robinson, man behind the curtain, how do they get this? What is the website? What is all the back end thing? You've heard us talking. They know what it is. How do they get this? What's the price point? What do you want to tell them? Make it all make sense.
So the video experience is at thiswillnotdefeatme.com. That's right, Davos, right? That's the right.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I always all the websites. So basically, this is going to be a landing page for a lot of stuff that we're hoping to do, as well as the after sexual abuse video experience. So definitely want to keep going back to it. But yeah, so we do have a page for this particular video experience. There is a free sample if you're not quite sure. There is a $27. You can just watch the first part. I kind of tag that as that's where you start healing. It's about you. It's about, looking at what happened, how you're handling it. But if you're ready to dive in, it's $297 for the entire course. It's a great course, as Gazdick say. I have to use the last names because I'm dealing with Chris and Chris. So
you love that.
So I use last names. But yeah, so if you're ready, $297 for the whole course, $27 for the first part to kind of get you started. The goal is, as they stated, safety in your own home. Do it at your own pace. You can go back through it. We will have handouts and different things as they go, so you can write things down. As Davos said, writing is so important. So we want you to get this out. We want you to make sure you understand these de-escalations. We want you to build these tools. Once you find out the issues, as you start healing, you know how to handle it, and then you can move forward with your life. And so, yeah, that's what it is. Thiswillnotdefeatme.com.
And I want to make a challenge out there to all the Through a Therapist Eyes tribe. Okay? I feel passionate about helping people with mental health and substance abuse. I know that Chris Davios does as well. And this is a way, sometimes you hear me talk about helping the show, doing this and that. I want to challenge the Through a Therapist Eyes tribe around the world to help a sexual abuse victim get a free version of all of this program. So if you're not a victim of sexual abuse yourself, I want to ask you that you please purchase a course for somebody, a video experience for somebody, knowing that you're doing good in the world through a therapist's eyes. We're working together, right? Like, this is something that we do, figuring it out together. Let's take actions together. So contact us. Contact at throughatherapisteyes.com is a great way to simply contact and say, I would like to donate a video experience to somebody, because I can give them out. Yeah. And I will be giving them out to some extent, but we need to pay for all the things that we did, and I want as many people in the world to get this video experience to help them heal and come, like Chris did, to emotional freedom from sexual abuse. So please, I challenge you. Let's do this together. Chris, how would you summarize this, man? What do you want to say in summarizing us, taking us out a little bit?
Well, I'm gonna say this: it's an investment in your future. $300, $297, however you want to say it.
Or someone else's.
It sounds like a lot, but I spent a lot more than that. I promise you that to get free. But I'll say right. This: it is an investment into your emotional freedom and into your future. Because if you want to stop living your past or letting your past control you, or you know someone else who's going through it, it's an investment into their life and their freedom.
Yeah, powerful.
Yeah.
Listen, I have a little bit of a tradition on Through a Therapist's Eyes, the podcast, Chris. Whenever a person is personally sharing on the show and talking about what their experiences are, I haven't done this, Neil, in a long time. Honestly, we need to get more guests and let us know what you'd like to hear about, because I'm sure there's people, that are willing to talk about their stories. When I was a kid, I had a lot of insecurities and whatever, and I remember there was a magical moment that I was surprised, and it made me feel very different. Like there was this cool kid that I was working with. He was a cool kid. I had a lot of respect for him, and he just walking towards me, and he put his hand up in the air, and I was like, oh wow, is he recognizing that to me? And it was like this split weird second. It's like, I think he was, and I followed his lead, and I put my hand up in the air as well, and he slapped me a high five, right?
Nice.
And I was like, oh wow, wait, what just happened? So to me, I haven't explained that on the show for a little while. When people are on the show sharing, their story and stuff, I like to. What was that in the background? That was not the high five, but I like to do a high five with people, Chris. It's powerful that you shared with your story that we're gonna do a lot of good in the world together, man. So let's do a high five.
Yeah.
I like it. So through a therapist's eyes, stay well. What a powerful story this is with sexual abuse and survivor. We are excited to see what this journey creates with This Will Not Defeat Me After Sexual Abuse. Stay well, and we'll see you next week. Take care.